In this video, I'm going to be reviewing the Pelikan M670 Warm Grey fountain pen. I'll go over the specs, I will do a writing sample, and I'll tell you what I like and don't like about this pen coming up. This is the Pelikan M670 in Warm Grey. This is a special edition color, which is now discontinued, although you can still find stock out there. Street price for these is $528, which is quite a lot of money. The reason that I bought this is I really like the post 97 M600 size, and I like Pelikans that are in a more modern colorway, which we have here with this warm gray and black PVD trim. I bought this essentially as an everyday kind of office pen, something that I can just, rely on. It's not necessarily a special occasion type of pen, but just a great workhorse. Now, the M600 line got larger after 1997, and the previous M600 line was the same size as the M400 and M200. As a comparison here, I have a M400, so you can just see it gets a little bit bigger, and this is the largest size Pelikan that doesn't have metal in the piston filling system, so you don't have as much of a back weight, and I just find this to be the most comfortable size in the Pelikan lineup. This is sort of the sweet spot, and I think this would be the sweet spot for most people. It's a typical Pelikan design here where we've got these sort of stepped finial here and the Pelikan logo. It looks really nice in this PVD trim with the brushed, or not brushed, this sort of, I don't know what you would call that, like media blast section and the high gloss. It looks really nice. The Pelikan beak clips on these M600s, modern post 97, is smaller and out of proportion with all the other ones. So you can see the 600, 400, and the 800. This is skinnier and shorter, I think, in proportion to the cap than the others, and it looks, I don't know, kind of funky to me. It doesn't look quite as, I guess, right as the other ones because I'm used to that proportion of the standard ones. So this one does look a little bit off, but the black, I think, really kind of hides that quite a bit. The warm gray color, I believe Pelikan said this was inspired by this very popular paint color. Porsche called it chalk. This was popular, maybe it's still popular, but I really do think it's going out of style. But it's sort of this, I like to call it primer. It's like, it's not off-white, it's a warm gray, but I know we saw Kim Kardashian had all of her cars and her Gulfstream were done in this color, and this was a very fashionable color, I want to say 5 years ago, but it's going out of style. I like it though because it's very subdued. I don't personally like the green striated Pelikan look. They just have a very classic businessman look, and this is just more subtle. So I do really like this color, but I could definitely see why people don't. I think, if you bought a car in this color, you're probably going to be regretting it pretty soon as it goes out of style. But it's subtle enough that maybe it's not that big of a deal. It's not like you bought a bright green car or something like that. Anyway, so that's the colorway. We have, two separate trim rings here, a smaller one, and then one that says Pelikan and Souverän because this is part of the Souverän line, and it says Germany because these are made in Germany. We have two rings at the piston knob here, just standard Pelikan body, very, very nice. In terms of uncapping, let's see. It is about 3/4 of a turn to uncap, which is very, very good. These pens post beautifully. I really love Pelikans for that. Again, I honestly think this and Aurora are maybe my favorite brands. I do love Mont Blanc, but for just general writing, Pelikan and Aurora, I think are maybe my tops. They did use this green color ink window, which I don't really love. I think they should have done like a more smoky color. However, when you fill it with ink, it just looks black or smoky. You can't really see that green color, so it's not a huge deal, but I do think that the green was a little bit of a miss. I think they just should have made it more of like a smoky gray or just made it clear would have also been good. Nice threading here, comfortable grip section. We have another PVD black trim ring here. Just a really well done pen. These are injection molded, but they remove all of the seams, so you get a really high quality feeling pen, you know, similar to a Mont Blanc. The nib here, PVD, black, 14 karat gold, um, looks very nice. Typical Pelikan design here, similar scroll work, and you've got the Pelikan logo there. They are threaded and they are interchangeable. You don't get too many nib options though with the 600 series, which is another, I would say, negative for the 600, despite having the best size and in-hand comfort, I would say. Let's do some measurements. Looking at about 132 capped, uncapped. This is a good one to use uncapped and capped. About 123, or sorry, posted and unposted, I mean. And here we're looking at about 155. The grip section here, 10.5 at the widest and 9.7 at the narrowest. Now as a comparison, let's compare it to a M400 here, 9 and 9.7. So you get about a millimeter thicker there. And then let's go to the 800, or this is an 805, but it doesn't really matter. So that's 11.2, and then at the narrowest, 10.6. So each version you get about a millimeter wider, which is very, I don't know, precise or proper steps, I guess is what I would say. 17.7 grams, nice lightweight there. This is almost out of ink. 11.4. And just as a comparison, again, let's compare it to, this is an M800. So that's 30, so that's about 10 grams more, and then 20, again, about 10 grams more, and this, 15. Okay, so these are pretty similar in weight. A little bit lighter with the 400, but not by a lot. All right, let's do some size comparisons. Okay, so here it is with a M809, which is the 800 size here. Oops. So pretty similar in size. That's why I really, even though the 800 is my favorite line because they have the best nibs, well, actually, the M1000 nibs are even better, but the pen isn't comfortable for me, and the nib is just huge. But these are really, really good nibs. But you don't have the metal in the barrel or in the piston filling system, so this is a more comfortable pen. And then here is a M250, which is the M400, M200 size. So you can just see that little step down there. And then we have a Aurora Optima, which is pretty similar in size. This has a bigger nib and grip section than the M600. So again, this is, you know, pretty much perfect in hand. This would be like a 9, and this would be probably a 9, also including that back weighting. And then here is a TWSBI 580 diamond, so a bit smaller than that, although the nib is bigger than the TWSBI nib. For the writing sample, I'm going to be using a Papermind Tomoe River hardcover notebook. These notebooks are excellent for fountain pens, and for Blake's broadcast viewers and subscribers, you can get 10% off with code BB10 at checkout. Okay, this is the Pelikan M670, and this is a extra fine, pretty sure. Yep. And this is the Papermind blue, our newest ink. It's a really nice dark blue ink. This thing is almost out of ink, so I'm curious if it's going to give us any problems. Ooh, it's squeaky when I write kind of fast. Huh. All right, let's try fast writing. No skipping, flawless performance. It's a nice nib. It's a Pelikan nib. Let's see here. Let's try. So for flexibility, oh, we did get a little, huh. All right, let's push on it a bit. You can get some minor line variation, but this, for a Pelikan nib, this to me feels like a nail. Reverse writing, actually not bad. And you do have some differences in the line, although it just might be less ink flow. Yeah, so it can do that. We're basically out of ink here, but it's wet and it's smooth. You know, for an extra fine, I don't know, I'd say this more writes like a normal fine as a comparison. I think this Kaweco is a fine. How does the line hold up? And it's wider than that. Yeah, typical Pelikan. Yeah, I would say that this is pretty much, and the skipping, it really, I think that was just because I hadn't written with it. Yeah, it's an extra fine, but I'd say it's more like a proper fine there. I have no issues with the performance of this. Fantastic Pelikan nib. Okay. So what are my pros and cons for the Pelikan M670? Well, I'll tell you the reason that I bought it is I like this colorway. It is simple. It feels a bit more modern than a lot of the Pelikan offerings. And I also really do think that the M600 size is the most comfortable in the Pelikan lineup. So for an everyday pen, this is really kind of the pinnacle in the Pelikan lineup. I appreciate the build quality, the reliability and performance. This pen travels really nicely. There's no performance issues. It writes flawlessly, and the piston filling system is easy to clean. The nibs are interchangeable. All of the Pelikan goodness is pretty much here. So that's the reason that I bought it and enjoy and plan to keep using this pen. In terms of cons, so $528 is the street price for this pen. It's not a cheap pen. It's also a special edition, so they aren't making these anymore. So what's out on the market is the remaining stock, essentially. So if you want one, you know, you probably have a little bit of time from when I post this video, you know, maybe a year, maybe two. But after that, you're not going to be able to buy these, so that is annoying. The nibs, they are fantastic. However, I will say the post 97, so post 97 Pelikan M600 got bigger. The nibs are the least special feeling in the entire Pelikan lineup. The M200 steel nibs feel special. The 400s, then you get into the 800s, which you're really getting into the very, very good stuff. Although the M200 nib is really good. And then the M1000, I think, is the most special nib. I mean, it is a wow if you can handle that big size nib. It's super soft. This is a nail. These M600 nibs are the least interesting post 97 M600 nibs. They also don't come in that many sizes. I mean, you get extra fine through broad, but like for instance, an M200 or M800 nib, you get italic options, you get oblique options. Not so with this pen. So you're more limited there. I also think that proportionally, for whatever reason, this model, the clip is much smaller and skinnier compared to the body of the pen. So just as a comparison here, here's an M250. You can see this looks bigger and wider. It is actually wider. Just the proportions on these pens for the clip, a little bit off. I know this is a weird thing to be saying, but if you look at every other model other than the M600 with the Pelikan beak clip, this one is weirdly skinny and not the same proportion as all the other ones. So it's weird. I don't know. That's pretty much it, though. Do you guys have this pen? Do you like this pen? Let me know in the comment section below. If you like this video, please hit that like button. And if you want to see more fountain pen, paper, and ink videos, please hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much, and until next time.